Document your life to understand yourself. Write about your life to understand yourself. This is such an important topic. I think this is like one of the foundations that an individual needs to embody, needs to do, such that they can really understand where to even start with their own self-actualization. There's this, I remember when it first started for me, where it was doing Jordan Peterson's self-authoring program with the past authoring, but also the present and future authoring program. And just being able to write about my life, that was therapeutic. But that's kind of evolved into more now where I actually like this exercise where it's about asking yourself the question, how did I get here? And you can spend 20 minutes and just list out, in bullet points or mind map it or whatever format you'd like. Write down all the things that happened in your life that's significant, from birth to where you are today, such that you can basically write your own autobiography, such that you can really understand how the hell you even got here. I think there's just so much life that happens that we forget to pause and reflect. We don't take time to make a vlog where we are just reflecting on what just happened, how we got here, and all that. We don't have any self-reflection systems in place. And so for one, this is a form of self-reflection. And so the way you want to do this exercise is that you write down, maybe like make a number line, whatever, or just write it all down and organize it later. You want to write down the specific events that have made an impact on your life. Most notably, the traumatic events and the difficulties that you had to go through in your life. Those will give you a lot of useful information on why you are the way you are today. And so when you can understand that, especially when you can identify the very difficult events, the traumas, then you can also identify what you need to work on, and also you can identify like how are you different today because of that trauma, and like what do you need to integrate, right? That's where you can do some shadow work, where you can do stuff like where you what I call desensitizing the bite, so if you think about something, so this is how I define trauma now. If something in the past bothers you today, then it's a trauma, right? Whereas like on the opposite end, if you can just think about it and it doesn't really bother you, doesn't give you any negative emotions or whatever, then it's not a trauma. But even like just negative experiences, like from an employer, and you think back on it and you still think negatively about it, that was a small trauma, even in your adulthood, through being neglected, right, or being mistreated. Now, of course, there's the ones with the bigger bites, the very significant childhood experiences, death of someone, tragedy, whatever it is, what it is for you. Or maybe it's not something specific, not a specific day. It's over years of being neglected, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it is, or being neglected in your relationships, even in your adult life. If you've been, in a crappy relationship for the past 20 years, that's going to be a form of trauma as well. So now you have this whole list in front of you of all the stuff of how you got here. Once you make that list, that alone is just going to develop so much clarity on just kind of like how the hell you got here. And also it's going to develop clarity, hopefully, on like why you made the decisions you made. Maybe sometimes we forget like why we are here and not over there. But then we look at our history. And actually one very empowering thing that can come from this process is to see like just where we came from, you know. That's something that's been very empowering for me, you know, because I would do these vlogs that would help me check in with my state of consciousness and whatever, like what I'm working on, what I'm struggling with. And when I do those vlogs or when I document my life and I write about certain things, and I read that years later, I can see like how my mind was thinking. I can see like what I was feeling at the time, and it's very empowering to see the amount of growth that I've managed to embody over the years. It's very empowering to actually see that contrast. And so that's awesome as well. Uh, a lot of your, one very important thing to note is that a lot of your negative patterns or your tendencies or your issues with setting boundaries or your weird quirks and behaviors, these can all be traced back to how you were raised and how you raised yourself and how, you know, the world raised you. And also like all the experiences that you've partaken in. And with that understanding, we can explicitly take action to rewire that. So whether that be through EMDR therapy or whatever other therapies, right? So it's very specific therapy. Or maybe it can be intentionally like reading some books on learning how to change that behavior. Maybe you need to read a book on boundaries. Perhaps you need to read a book on self-esteem, right? There's different ways of educating ourselves, different things we can go through, or maybe it means taking up a job that puts us in this uncomfort zone, or or in a job that allows us to experience a sense of community or a club or something like that, right? It's all going to be very individual based on what you went through and what you need. And so one of the best ways we can help understand ourselves, and especially with our struggles, is to document, right? Write diary entries, make vlogs, write about your life, split it out into epochs, right? High school, earlier grades, or younger life, or below, whatever, however you want to chop it up, right? Teenage years, early 20s, whatever, right? Chop it up in the way you want and write about all those significant experiences. Because once you can process all these experiences that you've had in your life, then you can just finally let it go. I realized that, something that's stuck in my mind for a long time, like where I kind of look at it and like I'm cringing, that's probably a memory I have to write about because it's not processed. And so that's a very useful insight to have when you realize, like, if your mind's pushing out something into your consciousness right now and you're kind of like cringing at it, like, oh my God, why'd I do that? Or, oh, that was so crappy, or that really sucked, or whatever. Reframe that as a prompt for you to write it. Your mind is telling you like, hey, this piece needs to be desensitized or understood, so please take time to write about it. So, open your commonplace book or diary or whatever and start writing. And through this, you will be able to break through your glass ceilings of happiness, Because when you try to feel more happy, the homeostasis of your system will introduce memories to keep you back down. But if you have no more memories to, that they're all desensitized, then there's nothing to stop you from feeling better. And as well, uh, that's all like that stuff is what's called upper limiting, and that's from the book The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Overall, there's immense value here. If you haven't even started writing about your life, I recommend starting today. And, chip at it every single day. Maybe get a good start on it. Do an hour a day for the next 30 days or 90 days. But then, put like 25 minutes in a day or whatever, one Pomodoro. And I think you will find that you will yield a lot of good insight from that. I noticed like I really yield insight when I document my experiences. And I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll never do this again. I'll make sure I'll put these in place to make sure that doesn't happen again. One thing I like to write about is my jobs that I do. I've done a lot of really stupid jobs and crazy jobs. And so just writing about all the shenanigans that would happen and stuff, the crappy stuff that would go down at those jobs and what I've experienced and how I felt, that needs to be processed. So I have a document just listing all the jobs that I've done. It's like over 20 now. And yeah, so with that, I think that is all I want to say about this. Super important. If you haven't started writing about your life, start today. You will gain so much insight. It's hard to communicate it. You have to just do it. And with that, you'll have more clarity on who you are, and you will grow in the process of doing that. And you will also come out with a more peaceful mind as you have worked through the memory and desensitized it. So with that, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.